All right. So let's be honest. Do you sit there at night wondering who's watching you from the spirit world? That's completely common. We wonder, are they watching me all the time? What are they doing? Well, the good news is they don't watch you all the time. So today I'm going to be talking about the 5 types of spirit guides that are around you when you start developing your intuition. There's a whole lot more than 5, but we'll break it down for you today. So stay tuned. Welcome to Spiritual and Ambitious. I'm your host, Whitney McNeil. I'm a certified medium and spiritual teacher, and I help spiritual and ambitious souls just like you live your life purpose through your career and attract abundance by connecting into your intuition and spirit guides. Let's get spiritual and ambitious. So before we officially get started, I wanted to give a shout out to Renew de Soul. She says, your podcast gives very informative advice on how to grow our intuition. I feel as if I can learn about it just through your podcast alone. Thank you for sharing this beautiful gift and advice to others. Thank you so much, Renew de Soul. I appreciate that sweet note. So if you're a listener and you haven't reviewed yet, I would love for you to participate in our podcast review giveaway. You can go to messengerspirit.com/podcast review, and we've got prizes as a thank you to our loyal listeners. So I had this crazy thing happen last week. All the power was out in my bedroom, but the rest of the house is completely fine. Now, this happened recently after my grandmother passed. So I thought, all right, maybe this is a coincidence. Maybe it's not, but I could still feel her presence around. So I asked her, hey, do you have any messages? And I got a couple. And a week went by. We actually went somewhere for a week for my birthday. And I truly believe taking time off is really, really important and key. And then when I got home, I called my parents. I told them about the electrical weirdness. And my mom said, well, that's probably Nan. That's what we called her. And I said, yeah, that's probably just a coincidence though. And she said, no, it's probably not. I kid you not. I hang up and I was having this phone call in our living room. I hang up with him and I walk into my bedroom and the power is out again. How crazy is that, right? So what's really interesting is I then was getting ready to record a podcast episode, in fact, this one, a couple days ago, and my Blue Yeti power cord went out, and so did my mouse. So I couldn't record a podcast episode until I got that power cord. So what do you do when stuff like that happens? Well, one of the things that you can do is open up the windows and sage that shit. You can also use frankincense aromatherapy, and I'll link to it in the show notes to clear out that funk. But in this case, one of the things that I did was I called on my protector guide. Now, I'm going to be giving you different scenarios as to what happens when your energy gets a little weird and wild. But I called on my protector spirit guide and I asked my protector guide to please make sure the space was cleansed and to also make sure I had good boundaries with my loved ones in spirit. So let's kind of break down who does that. Well, like I said, you've got 5 guides we're talking about today. One of them is a protector guide. The protector guide helps you with protecting you from energy. So if you feel like there's some funkiness or you feel like things are just going a little different, you can talk to your protector guide and ask this guide to help remove spirits that don't need to be there. Because to be honest, we love our loved ones in spirit. We love to talk to them. But we also don't love to talk to them 24 hours out of the day, right? If they're visiting with you and they're just constantly with you in the room or they're constantly around you, Like you need to breathe. You don't want somebody just staring at you all day. So it's important to make sure that we have good boundaries. So talking to your protector guide about, hey, can you clear this out? Now, I know some of you might be thinking, oh my gosh, but my loved one's in spirit. I can't do that. You're not doing anything wrong. You're not doing anything rude. It's just basically saying, hey, let's make sure that the spirits around me just kind of know what's going on. And you can say these things out loud. When somebody crosses over into spirit, they don't oftentimes know how to operate necessarily boundaries, because when we're spirit, we don't have a physical body. And so one of the things that I always giggle at is when my students do a spirit circle. I teach this inside of 4 intuitive languages. And when they are in a spirit circle and they're developing their clairvoyance, sometimes they see spirit really close to them. And it's because spirit doesn't really know boundaries. They're not there to scare you. They're not trying to. They're just trying to reach out, and they have to learn how to do it. That's why it's really important to talk to your spirit guides instead of your loved ones in spirit directly, because your spirit guides are like the certified electricians that know all the codes, know all the rules, know all the energy stuff. And your loved ones in spirit might be able to get a message to you, but it's not quite as effective. So I kind of call them like the handymen that are like, hey, I can get the job done, but I don't necessarily know all the codes and all the rules. So talking to your loved ones through your spirit guide team can be really helpful, and asking your protector guide to just kind of firm up the boundaries. Now, you can't just say, hey, can you firm up the boundaries? You actually need to be pretty clear about what boundaries you'd like to have. So one of the obvious boundaries, hey, I think that we need to set up a time for me to talk to my loved ones. And it's not going to be okay to talk to them in the middle of the night. I need my rest. And really just scheduling meetings. So if you've taken my programs before, you know that I am really big on scheduling a time so that you don't forget about it, but also so you can be a little bit more organized with when spirit communicates with you. So your protector guide really helps to filter out and maintain boundaries. Your protector guide also helps you with things going on the physical world too. So when you've developed your intuitive language, you're able to get those feelings, those knowings, or perhaps messages through sound or vision about what your next step is to take. But oftentimes your spirit guide, who's a protector, orchestrates the events of the day so that you're protected from so many things you don't even know that you were protected from. They do a great job. But sometimes you've got these moments where you have to listen. So one of the big moments, and I may have said this in a previous episode, but it's such a huge aha for me, was one of the first times I ever led a retreat was out in Sedona, which is where I now live. And I was coming back to the East Coast. When I was on the plane, I felt this uncontrollable anxiousness. My body just couldn't be settled. And I couldn't place why. I looked at my husband, who at the time I was just dating. I said, what's going on? Like, do you feel okay with the plane? Like, do you think the plane's okay? Just really trying to take a moment to place where all this energy was coming from. Well, we went to our connection flight, and our second plane got delayed 3 times. And it was so close to where we lived, I said, maybe we should just rent a car and drive. Well, we ended up not doing that. We got on the plane. And when I landed, I had this nauseous feeling in my stomach. And I texted my mom and I said, hey, I know that you and Dad usually sit up front. I don't know about you, but my parents are of this mindset where it's kind of like, we sit up front, you guys sit in the back, no matter how old we are. And I said, I'm just really nauseous and I'll need to sit in the front seat because I do have a tendency to get car sick. Well, we get in the car and I sit up front. My mom trades seats with me and she cannot get the seat belt to buckle. And so she says out loud to my dad, hey, don't get in a wreck because I can't get the seatbelt to close. Well, what happens is we start to drive, and I look at my dad and I said, let me drive. And he kind of looked at me like, what do you mean? You just want me to pull over to the side of the road and let you drive? No. I said, let me drive 2 more times. Now, as a channeler, stuff just comes out of my mouth and I respond to the energy in my body. So I'm responding to this message with this nauseousness, and I'm responding with, I want to drive. Not knowing exactly what's going to happen, but I'm just responding to the energy. What that was my protector guide trying to say, hey, let's prevent this thing. Well, he wouldn't stop, and we ended up getting in an accident, and the other car hit right in my mom's side in the rear. The good news is that her seatbelt didn't work, so she was thrust over into the lap of my husband. And if she would have had that seatbelt buckled, she probably wouldn't have made it. We were all okay, but this is an example of how your protector guides work. My protector guides knew what was going on. They shifted me around, and they also, as you can see, my mom's spirit guides knew what was going on there and made sure that that seatbelt wasn't going to work. Now, if I sat in the back, I probably would have made it work. Well, it all worked out the way it needed to. So they do such a good job. Now, another spirit guide that you have around you is your teacher guide. Your teacher guide helps you learn lessons that you chose to learn before you incarnated. Now, these lessons can be lessons that you learn literally. So if you've taken any of my programs or you're listening to this podcast, your teacher guide has inspired you to be here so that you can learn something from this podcast episode, so that you can learn something from me. Your teacher guide also helps guide you to situations where you really need to learn something too. It's not always on the earth plane that we learn. We also learn in the astral plane. So the astral plane is basically where spirit lives. We are able to visit that plane really at any time, but most of the time we do that while we are sleeping. Our spirit moves out of our body and converses with our spirit guides. We can meet other people. We can even see loved ones who've passed. About 80% of the time, we don't remember vividly this astral travel. And if we do, we think it was a dream. Most of the time, what happens is we come back into our body. We don't know what happened at night. And then all of a sudden we have this, oh my gosh, I remember I had a dream where somebody told me this. Or, I've got all this knowledge about this random subject that I don't know where I learned, but I just know it. That's astral travel, where you're learning something. I like to call these rememberings like this card that you put in your back pocket and you forgot about. And then when a situation arises, you get to go, wait a minute, I know about that. Or I have an aha moment. Somebody told me about it. So your teacher guide helps you to learn things. They can also help you prepare for things. Knowing that I was speaking in front of over 1,000 people, I was a little nervous. My spirit guides helped take me to a speaking place, and I practiced my speech in this astral plane so that I could see when the crowd was engaged and when I needed to pick up the crowd a little bit more. It was really helpful, and I've done this with classes. I've done this with just learning more about how to speak and so forth and so on. So your teacher guide, super helpful. You also have a guide. We have a guide that helps just give us our information through our intuitive channels. So guiding us with those nudges where we need to go, guiding us along our path. Our guide can be so helpful in so many ways. And this can be taking you to a relationship. This can be nudging you to the next opportunity that they've created for you with your job, giving you these inspiring aha moments, helping you to wake up in the morning and know which way you're going to go to work, or helping you say, I'm going to research this topic today. And then it turns out that you got a great deal. or you needed to learn more because somebody's going to present an opportunity for you that you need to be prepared for. So you've got 3 personal guides: your protector guide, your teacher guide, and your guide. Now, when we come back from this quick break, I'm going to be talking about the 2 spirit guides that you start to work with when you develop your intuition. All right, so stay tuned. This episode is sponsored by my free Spirit Guide Masterclass. Inside, you'll learn the 5 C's of Spirit Guide communication, your role with your spirit guides, 2 proven effective strategies to stop second guessing yourself and your intuition, and the single most important step to understand your intuitive guidance, along with 4 ways to perceive your spiritual intuitive messages. You'll also be getting a workbook to go through this class as well. You can join at messengerofspirit.com/free class. As a professional psychic medium, I've done tens of thousands of readings, but I felt a call to move more fully into teaching intuition. But I still get so many requests about doing readings. So while I don't do readings anymore, I have brought in some very trusted colleagues who are now available for live 1-hour readings on Zoom. If you would like to book your psychic medium reading, go to messengerofspirit.com/appointments to see our available readers and schedule your Zoom reading today. All right, thanks for listening. Let's get into the 2 spirit guides that you start to work with when you become interested in intuition and you really start developing your intuitive language and your desire to connect with your spirit guides. So one of the guides I talk about inside of 4 intuitive languages is the chemist. What? The chemist? Absolutely, the chemist. So the chemist helps to work on your etheric body. You have a physical body, you have an etheric body. So if you've ever been in a dim room and you've looked over at somebody and you see this whitish glow around someone, that is literally the etheric body. Your etheric body contains sensitivity receptors, and the chemist works on those sensitivity receptors. They can add more, they can remove them, which I never recommend to do, and I explain why to all my students that work with me, but you can also reroute them too. But really, for the purposes of this episode, the chemist works on increasing your sensitivity and adjusting it. So if you're like, I saw in my mind's eye this cat, but it was really blurry, your chemist can start to tweak it. So your chemist can help you to make this a little bit more clear, or to perhaps make your feelings more clear, or reroute some things going on too. So your chemist really helps you develop your intuitive language. And one of the best ways to do this is inside a spirit circle. If you've ever felt these tinglies, or you feel kind of like, oh my gosh, somebody's like a bug's walking on me, or I've walked through a spider web, generally those are symptoms of your chemist working on you. Also, you might start to develop some weird cravings. Oh my goodness. It's been so interesting seeing what my students have told me when they get their chemistry work done. Sometimes they smell chemicals. Sometimes they feel like they're craving a specific food. For me, when I really started getting into developing my mediumship and my intuition, I craved marinara sauce, and I would eat a spoonful of marinara sauce. Like after I would talk to my spirit guides, after I'd do readings, after I'd sit in a spirit circle. And I really think it was something to do with the herbs inside of the sauce, but I would just crave it. And that's what my body needed. It's interesting when that stuff happens. So you've got help. It's important that you develop your intuitive language so that you see the validation and you feel strong in your language and it becomes more tangible for you. But your spirit guides help you too. And your chemist definitely is wanting time with you, needs time to work on your chemistry, and you've got to communicate what's working and what's not. And the 5th guide that you get when you develop your intuition is the doorkeeper. Think of the doorkeeper like a bouncer at the club. This guide says, Yes, you can go through the door. No, you cannot. Your doorkeeper is going to be really helpful with your boundaries. So now your protector guide helps you, but when you start talking to spirit, your doorkeeper is going to be the first person in line that says, hey, let's just use me as an example. Whitney has said that she's not taking any requests right now. You can think of yourself kind of like a celebrity of, oh, now I have this ability where I can talk to spirit, but your doorkeeper gets to help you. And so you don't have to do it all. That means you talk to your doorkeeper and say, hey, this is when it's okay to talk to spirit and to get messages from my guides or my loved ones. And this is when it is not okay to do those things. So your doorkeeper is the first person to help with, if you feel like you're waking up in the middle of the night and you need some help, you're going to call on your doorkeeper and you're going to say, this is not okay. What's going on? I've set the boundary, and vice versa. You're also going to call on your protector guide to help that situation as well. Your doorkeeper is the guide that also helps you when you are wanting to receive all the information. This is also why it's helpful to set a time so that your doorkeeper is on the same page with you. So if you know from 10 to 11, you want to talk to your spirit guides, that's great. Now, sometimes people say, well, when do you want to talk to my spirit guides? All the time. I don't want to set a time. That's fine. You can say to your guides, hey, I want to be open to receiving your messages every day, but let's at least have a moment where we sit and connect and talk and get all the things out. Because if you don't, then you're going to just be bombarded all day with things, and it can be very hard to distinguish, is this real? Is this my thought? Is this something that I am just making up in my head? So having that time with them is going to be really key. And then letting your doorkeeper know when it's okay and when it's not okay. Sometimes we just say, well, I want to talk to my loved ones whenever they want to talk to me. But I gave an example a couple episodes ago where I said to my spirit guides, sure, my grandmother can come and visit. And then she visited. I gave her permission to, but it was right before I was getting ready to go on a podcast interview myself, where I needed to be in a place where I wasn't crying. So making sure that you've got that schedule is going to be really important. So your 5 guides, you've got 3 personal guides, a guide, a teacher, protector. And then when you become interested and you work with me with your intuition, you get a doorkeeper to help you just make sure that you only have the right spirits talking to you, and making sure that the time is there for your spirit guides and when it's not the right time. And you also have a chemist to help adjust your chemistry. And this is really helpful if you're wanting to develop a new intuitive language and also enhance the ones that you already have. So I would love to see you in my free Spirit Guide Masterclass. To learn more, you can go to messengerspirit.com/free class. And I will see you inside of the next episode. Thanks for listening. Until then, here's to staying spiritual and ambitious. Thanks so much for listening to this episode. And if you loved it, would you please share it with a friend? I would also love your review and a reminder to subscribe so you never miss an episode. You can find me at messengerspirit.com, and you can take the 4 Intuitive Languages quiz and find show notes there too. If you want to connect on YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, you can find me at Messenger of Spirit. If you want to continue the conversation, join my free Facebook group at messengerofspirit.com/group. I'll meet you right here next week. Here's to staying spiritual and ambitious.
This podcast is part of the Sound Advice FM network. Sound Advice FM. Women's voices amplified.